Hey YouTube, what's going on? It's Brezzy43 back here after a nice, relaxing holiday weekend again. I had some work. I had spent some time with my girlfriend, and we had a good time just enjoying the holiday season together. But now I'm ready for the next qualifiers for the Players Cup 3. So for those of you that don't know, the Players Cup is this online competition that the Pokemon Company has started to do online for people because all in-person events have been canceled for this year due to the pandemic. So Players Cup is this free to play online tournament that you can gain access to through your Switch for free. The only thing you have to do is you have to make a Pokemon account and link it to your Nintendo account, which is relatively easy to do. There's a step-by-step guide you can follow, pretty easy to find. But there's a couple of stipulations about this tournament. So the first is that you, as the player, own all of the Pokemon that you're going to use. You can't use a rental team for this competition. So that's one. And two, it's kind of like multi-step. The first game, or the first section of the qualifiers, is anyone in the world is allowed to play, and you play in an online ranked ladder where you start off with a rating of 1500, and every win you get gives you a certain number of points, usually about 15 to 25, somewhere in that mark, and every match that you lose, every best of one that you lose, drops you down those points. So, and the whole goal is to get as high of a rating as possible, where it gives you an overall rating in the world. But here's the catch. So at the end of the Players Cup, you're given a rating that tells you how high you placed among every other player in the world. However, you only have to be top 256 for your region. So there's four regions in Pokemon. There's Latin America, North America, Europe, and Oceania. And LATAM, North America, and Europe all have 256 spots, and Oceania has 128 maybe. I don't know their number specifically, but I know that you have to be in the top 256 for your region if you want to qualify for the next step of the process for the Players Cup. From there, it goes into a double elimination 256 person event to get down to the top players, and then from there they all go into a best of three. Now, I've been saying best of one on purpose because this is the other catch about the tournament, is that it's a best of one, which is really interesting for a lot of reasons, because certain strategies are a bit stronger in best of one than they are in best of three, because you can often catch your opponent by surprise with some of your sets that they may not be aware of. So why does all of this matter? Well, I have a little bit of something to prove for myself here, because I went through the qualifiers last time for Players Cup 2, which was a few months ago. I did well enough in the qualifiers to make it to the top 256 of North America. However, I had thought that I had linked my Nintendo account to my Switch, or my Pokemon account to my Nintendo account, but I had not done it correctly, and therefore missed out on the qualification. So I have a little bit of something to prove in that regard, that I'm kind of looking forward to getting back into it, and diving in and playing in this next qualifier. So what's today's video is going to be about? Well, so far we've talked through a lot of team building and a lot of the nitty gritty stuff behind Pokemon, but now we're going to get into an actual team that I'm going to build around things that I think are good, and I've got most of it fleshed out in my head already. But from here we're gonna see kind of how a team starts to come together, and we'll do some testing on the showdown ladder here, a couple of games. I'll work on finishing the team in my Switch, because I almost have all of the members built, and then we'll kind of go from there. So we're gonna jump over to Pokemon Showdown here, and again, these are our little teams that we had built in our training videos, so we don't need those. We're gonna go ahead and click on a new team. So I'm also gonna pull up the website Pikalytics here, because this is gonna give us, Pikalytics just updated all of their usage at the first of the month because the ladder reset. So this is now the new usage stats. Incineroar is the most used Pokemon, followed by Tapu Fini, Glacier, Rillaboom, Regieleki, Urshifu, and so on and so forth. So one of the first things that I did was I approached my team building partner, Mr. KewlAid, Ben Erickson. I approached him and I said, I have this idea for this thing that I want to do for a team. I've got some things that I really like. I've got some hypotheses I want to test out. I want to get your opinion. So we sat down and we started talking through the things in the metagame that we had to be aware of. We wanted to be good against Regieleki. Regieleki is a very, very prominent Pokemon right now on a lot of teams. We wanted to make sure that we had a positive matchup here. Incineroar is Incineroar and Landorus we kind of grouped together because they're both the de facto Intimidate users. Intimidate being an ability that a Pokemon has that when they enter the battlefield, they drop the attack stat of both Pokemon on the opposing side of the field by one stage each. So Incineroar and Landorus are like immediate checks to physical attackers. On top of that, we knew that Glacier was going to be the most prominent Trick Room sweeper that people were going to use. And we were also keeping in mind some other things. I thought that Life Orb Zapdos was really strong. I thought that Amoonguss could be potentially problematic on certain teams. I thought that Grimmsnarl stuff was really annoying to try to deal with. Grimmsnarl is a prankster Pokemon that often will use Trick to switch items with its opponent and give Lagging Tail or Full Incense to an opponent's Pokemon, swapping in items with it, and then hindering that Pokemon it switches items with, etc. Spectre was a big thing that we were thinking about. This is kind of a new aggressive Pokemon that people are starting to use. It's used in two different ways. Some people use it as a support Pokemon with moves like Will-O-Wisp, Snarl, and Taunt, but other people use it as a Life Orb sweeper to Dynamax it. And then obviously the usual stuff like Sun, Venusaur, Torkoal. We also wanted to be in mind of these powerful steel types here. Rotom Heat was on our mind. Different things like that. And we started to build this team. So this is, again, you can find this at Pikalytics. This is a really nice tool that you can go look at if you are interested in what's popular in the metagame, interested in who common partners are, etc. So in my playing with teams, I told my friend Ben, I said, I think that Galarian Moltres is very strong. Moltres Galar is, if we go back to Pikalytics, is one of the most used Pokemon. It's at 12.9%. I think this thing is very good, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I think Weakness Policy is an incredible item on this Pokemon, because if you look at its base stats, it's a very naturally bulky Pokemon is what we call this. It's got a whopping 125 SpDef stat, 90 defense, and 90 HP. 100 special attack is not that low either. It's workable, it's doable, and then 90 speed is relatively decent as well, especially considering that if you Dynamax this thing, you're going to be giving Air Slash boosts. This Pokemon was really good in my opinion because it gave you a good matchup against Grimmsnarl, which was really popular, really picking up on ladder, people doing trick things, people doing taunt, thunder wave, things like that. Well, Prankster has a unique clause that they implemented in Generation 6 that Dark-type Pokemon are immune to Prankster moves. So Grimmsnarl can still set up its screens. However, it can't target my Moltres with Fake Tears, Trick, Thunder Wave, Taunt, etc. It has to stick with these moves here. So that was one reason why I liked Moltres. The second reason is I really liked Moltres against a lot of the things in the metagame, Rillaboom being one of them. I liked it against Amoonguss. I liked it against Spectre. I liked it against Sun. But I was struggling a little bit with the Zapdos matchup and some Regieleki stuff and different components like that. So we were trying to find a partner, but I told him I want to build a team with Moltres. That was step one. Step two was that I had a inclination that the Pokemon Bronzong was a sleeper pick. So what is Bronzong? Let's take a look at Bronzong. So Bronzong, I'll pull them up on Pikalytics as well. 0.48% usage, so really not a used Pokemon at all. But it's a Steel Psychic type, which is a pretty solid type. It does get access to Trick Room. It does get access to Body Press as well, which Body Press is a new move that, in my opinion, is a fantastic move. It allows Pokemon like Bronzong and other Pokemon like it to thrive a bit better in certain metagames. So Body Press is a fighting type move, base 80 power, 100% accuracy, that calculates the damage based on the user's defense stat. So if you look, Bronzong is decent HP, or relatively low HP, very good defenses, and like a decent attack type, decent special attack, and then like low speed, which is where you want it. So like, what are you doing? What are What does this Pokemon do? Well, previously, in other VGC formats, this thing has been a Trick Room setter that's relied on its phenomenal typing of Steel Psychic to be able to tank a lot of hits and maybe disrupt the opponent through. So it usually would run Trick Room, and then it would often run Gyro Ball, things like I'm forgetting the name. It's not Guard Swap. It's I'm forgetting the name of it. Let's find it right now. Bronzong Pokédex. Let's see what the database says it is. I'm not finding it. What is it? Am I crazy? There's no way. It's a psychic move. Skill swap. There it is. Skill swap. So Bronzong was a Trick Room setter that often, because Bronzong has incredible abilities, it actually has 2 very good abilities and 1 terrible ability. Heavy Metal is not usually used at all. Levitate and Heat Proof are both fantastic abilities if you take a look. With Heavy Metal, Bronzong has 4 weaknesses, right? Fire, Ghost, Dark, and Ground with 1 immunity. But its first ability, Levitate, actually gives it a ground immunity. And its second ability, Heat Proof, actually makes it so fire only hits it neutrally rather than super effectively. So it has access to 2 very good abilities. And in previous VGC formats, Bronzong has been able to skill swap its ability to a partner. So for example, if you ran a Pokemon on your team that had a very glaring weakness to something specific, you could skill swap Levitate onto it and remove that ground weakness, or skill swap Heat Proof and whatever. Why does any of that matter? Well, when they created Dynamax, they actually made it so you cannot target Dynamax Pokemon with certain moves, because Dynamax technically changes the Pokemon's integrity for a few turns. Things that check weight of a Pokemon can't be used on a Dynamax Pokemon. So I can't heavy slam a Dynamax Pokemon, for example, because that move cares about how heavy my Pokemon is compared to the other Pokemon. Also, things like things like skill swap got changed as well, and guard swap, and all those swap skills, because you can't mess up your opponent by skill swapping them a crappy ability, or you can't skill swap your ally once they've been Dynamaxed. So you have to do it before they Dynamax. But there's a particularly interesting thing about Bronzong. If you take a look at its resistances here, the most common Trick Room sweeper is Glacier, like I talked about. And if you take a look at Glacier runs typically ground, ice, fighting, steel. That's it. That's the 4 moves that it runs for coverage. Well, if you take a look at Bronzong, if you give Bronzong Levitate, it can't be hit by ground. It's neutral to fighting because it removes its fighting weakness via its psychic typing. Steel you resist steel, and ice you resist ice. So in theory, this thing should be able to just sit in defensively wall Glacier. And if you couple that with Body Press and Iron Defense as a way to boost your defenses, things start to get really interesting. So if we go back to our Pikalytics here, and we go back to Team Builder, if we go to Damage Calc, and we go to Bronzong, and you were to run a max defense Body Press set, and you were to look at the calcs against Glacier. Let's say this is the normal Glacier set. Let's give it a Life Orb, and let's Dynamax it, whatever. So if you take a look at the Dynamax, you can't be hit by Max Quake, like I said. Max Hailstorm from a Life Orb Glacier max attack does 37% on a high roll, and Max Knuckle doesn't do that much. If they decide to close combat instead, they'll get to do a bit more, because like I talked about, Dynamax fighting moves and do less damage than normal Dynamax moves because of the boost. So if we Dynamax and let's these moves, you see the power here. You see Body Press on Dynamax Glacier is doing 20% already, but let's say we got a Body Press up, so we doubled our defense. Now these moves aren't even dealing 20%, and Body Press is going to deal a ton more. We can just sit in front of this thing in Iron Defense, Iron Defense, Iron Defense. And if you take a look after Dynamax, even +3 has a chance to OHKO. So if we Iron Defense twice, we have a chance to one-shot this Glacier. And meanwhile, Glacier does nothing to us. So these were my theories when I was building the team. These were my theories. I said, okay, I think Bronzong's sneakily good right now, and I think Moltres is obviously good, and people are aware that Moltres is good, but I want to build a team with Moltres. I like the Pokemon. I think it's cool. So we talked about weakness policy being most likely the item on Moltres. The reason why weakness policy is good on a Pokemon like Moltres is because Moltres being so naturally bulky, the best way to kill Moltres is to hit it with a super effective move. And most of the time, the super effective moves aren't going to KO it because of how bulky it is. And your opponent has to then run the risk of giving you a free weakness policy activation if they hit you with a super effective move. On top of that, Moltres' ability is Berserk. Berserk says this Pokemon's special attack is raised by one stage when it reaches half or less of its max HP. So if you hit this thing with a super effective move and you drop it down below its half HP mark, you've activated a weakness policy and you've activated its Berserk. So you've effectively raised its special attack by 3 stages, and now it's going to just nuke something on your team. So this is why I like this Pokemon. It gets access to some very solid moves. Fiery Wrath being a specific one that it's a move unique to Moltres. It's a spread move that has 90 power, 100 accuracy, 20% chance to make the foe flinch. So this is like an auto include on this Pokemon. Most people run Protect, and then most people run Air Slash or Hurricane for the flying move. But there's technically, you don't have to run Protect either, but there's technically 3 moves that you can experiment with here, and we don't know which one we're going to put yet. But the Moltres can get Protect, can get Nasty Plot, which is a status move that increases the user's special attack by 2 stages. So one of the strategies people will implement to beat Moltres is by simply just ignoring it. And Nasty Plot allows you to punish that by getting a huge special attack boost if your opponent just chooses to ignore you. And the other interesting move is Taunt. Moltres does get Taunt, which I do personally really like, but I don't know which one I'm going to use yet. I know that this is where I'm going to start. So this led us to 2 very strong speed control options. We had Max Airstream on Moltres, and we had Trick Room on Bronzong. These were things that we were sure of. We knew that we wanted to run Trick Room, Body Press, and Iron Defense. But from here, things were a little bit tricky. We were trying to decide on. We had two different parts of the team we could build here. We wanted to build a Trick Room sweeper option, or like a Trick Room option under the team. So what do I mean by Trick Room option? I mean, Bronzong sets Trick Room and is always very slow. We would be running this most likely. Most of the time, the stat won't matter because like I said, we're calculating it off of defense. But Bronzong's really slow and sets Trick Room, and so ideally you'd want to have another Pokemon on your team that can Dynamax and take advantage of Trick Room, because Bronzong is not commonly a Dynamax Pokemon because its offensive stats are so low. So we initially arrived at Glacier. Glacier was something that I obviously think is very good. I think the Pokemon's very strong base stat wise. And this was where we initially started, and this left us with a good Trick Room mode. So we knew that we had a good Trick Room mode here, and we knew that we wanted to do something like this. And then for Bronzong, it was most likely going to be something like this. And then for Glacier, we were going to run Life Orb because we saw Life Orb available, which is one of the best offensive items you can give your Pokemon. And we ran Protect, Icicle Crash, Close Combat, and High Horsepower. So this left us with a good Trick Room mode, and now we were left with the other half of the team. We're like, okay, we have a good Trick Room mode here, but now we need to think about the Moltres mode. What are we going to run with Moltres? Well, one of my personal favorite Pokemon of all time is Raichu. And I think Raichu is a bit underexplored right now in the metagame as well. I was actually a little bit surprised to see that it was 2.77% usage. I actually thought it would be a lot lower than that. But Raichu is so in my opinion, there's 3 different electric types that you often will see paired with Moltres. You'll see Regieleki, Tapu Koko, or Raichu. Regieleki is by far and away the most offensive option that you can partner with Moltres, while still also being able to set screens and deal damage and whatnot. It's really nice because you can, because of Regieleki's such fast speed, you can invest into its bulk, using your 508 EVs to make it bulkier, even though its defense stats are super weak, and it gives you good speed control as well as the option for screens. But now, Raichu does some things a little bit differently than Regieleki for Moltres. Raichu has a unique ability called Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod is an ability that, if we pull it up in Showdown, I'll show you. So Raichu, Lightning Rod. This Pokemon draws electric moves to itself to raise special attack by 1 and gives it an electric immunity. So if you try to, this is only single target moves, so Electroweb gets around this, but if you try to Thunderbolt Moltres, it's going to get redirected to Raichu. Raichu won't take any damage, and Raichu will get a special attack boost for its trouble, which is incredible support synergy from Moltres. And I thought this could be a great team for Raichu, because one of the other things that Raichu gets that is really unique compared to the other electric types is access to the move Fake Out. Fake Out hits first turn only, 100% chance to flinch the Pokemon. So you can't flinch Dynamax Pokemon, unfortunately, but you have the ability to fake out your opponent's non-Dynamax Pokemon to 100% flinch them, but it only works the first turn that the Pokemon's in play. So the very first turn Raichu's in play, it can go for Fake Out. Any other turns after that, it can't. So Fake Out and Volt Switch are very good moves that Raichu gets access to. Volt Switch deals damage, 100 accuracy, 70 base power, but the user switches out after damaging the target. So you can hit your opponent with Volt Switch, deal some damage, and then switch Raichu out, so that way you have Raichu in the back again to reset your Fake Out. So a hypothetical situation would be lead Moltres Raichu, go for Fake Out plus Nasty Plot, and then Volt Switch your Raichu away and switch in something else to preserve the Raichu and get another Fake Out later, and then Moltres can Dynamax and start dealing damage. So that was, in theory, I've used Raichu before on other teams, and Raichu's a very nice support mon. Giving access to Fake Out is incredible. And I think that it's really strong. Raichu has a lot of good support options from here. If you take a look at its move pool, it gets Light Screen and Reflect. It gets Nuzzle, which is an incredible move. 100% chance to paralyze the target. It's a weak move, but you guarantee paralysis, which is broken a lot of the time, because it's a 50% chance that your opponent just won't get to move at all. It also gets Thunder Wave, Thunderbolt, Volt Tackle for offensive capabilities. It gets Charm, which lowers the target's attack by 2 stages. It gets Eerie Impulse, which lowers the target's special attack by 2 stages. It gets Electroweb for speed control. It gets Feint to fight through Protects. This Pokemon, it does it all. It's an incredible helping hand. This Pokemon is an incredible support option, and it can really be tailored to do Speed Swap is another great move that I've used before. So it can be used in a plethora of teams for a variety of options that it's really difficult to... You have to kind of pick the 4 moves that best fit your team. But we knew that Raichu, based on its very lackluster stats defensively, we knew that Raichu was going to be our Focus Sash candidate. Raichu was going to be the Pokemon that carried the Focus Sash. So with Focus Sash, one of the beauties is you don't have to invest your EVs into bulk. You can just do something like this. And we wanted our Raichu to be as fast as possible for Volt Switching. And then the last 4 points you can put into wherever. You could put it here. You could put it here. It doesn't really matter that much. So this left us with a decent core, but we had a middle ground we had to fill up. And one of the things that I really liked, one of the things we're missing on this team is terrain. Terrain control is a big deal. Being able to have control your opponent's terrain so they can't take advantage of their own terrain, and also set up terrain for your own capabilities is really strong. We don't have a grass type on this team. We're kind of all over the place with our typings. I remember talking to in my previous video about the cores like Steel, Dragon, Fairy, Fire, Water, Grass, things like that. In this case, we don't actually end up implementing those, but we did immediately think of Rillaboom as a grassy surge Pokemon. for a good terrain, we would take it, because our team was mostly grounded Pokemon. We would actually take advantage of the synergy of all of our Pokemon being on the ground and getting extra recovery from the grassy terrain boost. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart there. But the one that actually makes a bit more sense defensively for us is Tapu Fini. So Tapu Fini, I wanted to lean a bit harder into the... Ben's a big fan of Rillaboom, so Ben had a lot of influence in us almost choosing Rillaboom here. But Tapu Fini, if you take a look at Tapu Fini sets Misty Terrain. Misty Terrain is a very interesting... a very interesting ability. It sets up Misty Surge sets up Misty Terrain. So what does Misty Terrain actually do? Misty Terrain Misty Surge sets up Misty Terrain for 5 turns, and this is what it does. Misty Terrain creates terrain that envelops the field and replaces the background environment and any other terrain that is already in effect. The terrain fades after 5 turns. The terrain has the following effects on all Pokemon that are on the ground and not in the semi-invulnerable turn of a move. So, if you switch in Tapu Fini in the middle of a turn with Volt Switch or something like that, it doesn't... the effects don't happen right away for it. It prevents a Pokemon from being afflicted by non-volatile status conditions. What the heck are those? Non-volatile status conditions: burn, freeze, paralysis, poison, badly poisoned, sleep. Those are all non-volatile status conditions. So why is that a good thing? Well, Pokemon has a component of variance to it. Things happen. You can get hit with an ice beam and it freezes you. You can get hit by a flamethrower and it burns you. This terrain removes all those effects for grounded Pokemon specifically. That's one like good thing. If an affected Pokemon is drowsy due to yawn, it is prevented from falling asleep. Rest will fail if used by an afflicted Pokemon. On top of that, most of the time, the other 3 terrains actually boost the damage of their corresponding terrain. So like electric terrain allows electric type Pokemon to deal more damage. Grassy terrain does it for grass types, and psychic terrain does it for psychic types. However, Misty Terrain does not boost the damage of fairy types. It actually halves the damage of power, or halves the power of dragon type moves used against affected Pokemon, regardless of whether the user of the move is affected by Misty Terrain. So as long as the target is in the Misty Terrain, any Pokemon that hits it with a dragon move, the damage is going to be halved. So the reason why this is so strong is because one of the counterplays you can make to Glacier as an opponent is to burn it. Burning it reduces its physical damage by a lot. And so if you burn it, you can actually hinder its offensive capabilities, but Tapu Fini doesn't allow that to happen. On top of this is something that I thought was interesting, because Raichu also synergizes with Tapu Fini as a second electric weakness. So we have 2 Pokemon weak to electric that both would love to have Raichu next to them. And on top of that, Tapu Fini also gets access to a really powerful setup move called Calm Mind. Calm Mind raises the user's special attack and special defense by 1 stage. If you take a look at Tapu Fini in the charts here, most people are running this leftovers set, but Choice Specs is popular as well. Choice Specs gives you more immediate damage, but personally, I think I like the Calm Mind set a bit more than I like the Choice Specs set. And if you run Choice Specs, you can't use moves like, well, you can use moves like Calm Mind, but Choice Specs and Choice Scarf and Choice Band, they lock you into the first move that you choose, but give you an added bonus. So Choice Specs gives you a 1.5 times multiplier to your special attack stat, but in exchange, you can only select the first move that you choose when Tapu Fini comes into play. Dynamax does remove those effects. You can Dynamax and choose any move you want, but you don't get the added bonus power of Choice Specs. But this is a decent, like, Calm Mind is a really strong Tapu Fini set. And if you take a look, Water Fairy is an incredible typing. If we take a look at Tapu Fini in this area here, I think I have to do like a dash or something. There we go. Tapu Fini only has 3 weaknesses, and we are, in theory, removing one of them for with our Raichu. So we only have, it's only weak to grass and poison. So definitely very solid Pokemon overall. Really good defensive synergies with the team. It's a really nice switch in for Raichu because you, or for like if you try to Volt Switch away and you're expecting to be hit by something else, like it's good switching potential. This team is turning into a very bulky offensive team that relies on switching to position itself accordingly. So with this set, you'd likely be running Muddy Water, and then you'd be running Moonblast. Now, Muddy Water is a really unfortunate move because it's only 85% accurate, but it has 90 base power and a 30% chance to lower the foe's accuracy by 1. So, like, the accuracy drops are kind of nice, but I'd almost rather have this move be a more accurate move and forego this effect. But Muddy Water is a spread move that only hits your opponent's side of the field, which is pretty nice. So, and Tapu Fini for this set is likely going to be running, it could run a couple of different items. It could run Citrus Berry. It could run, a lot of people run Leftovers. A lot of people also run Wiki Berry, which is a different kind of a recovery berry. Tapu Fini, I know in one of my previous videos I talked about Leftovers being a tricky item to use in competitive doubles, because because competitive doubles is such a fast format, in order to get enough recovery out of Leftovers to make it worth it, your Pokemon has to sit in play for several turns. But because of Tapu Fini's phenomenal defensive bulk and its phenomenal defensive typing, it's actually a viable Pokemon to use Leftovers on. So Leftovers is a decent option for this Pokemon. Otherwise, one of these berries. I don't know which one we're going to use yet, so we're going to go ahead and leave that blank for now. But the spread is likely going to be some mixture of... we're going to invest a lot into HP because HP is its lowest stat. And it's an important one because Tapu Fini for us is going to want to sit on the battlefield for multiple turns. So we likely are going to want to have some number of investment here, and then the rest spread out between these remaining 4 stats, with this most likely being the stat that we hinder. So this is 5 Pokemon, very good place to start. We started to think about what other things we could put on our team. And one of the things that I have always liked ever since I've been playing competitive Pokemon, or dabbling in it and watching, was double fake out. Having the ability to, with a Pokemon like Raichu, to fake something out, Volt Switch out to gain momentum. That's what Pokemon players refer to as momentum. If you use your Raichu to deal some damage, switch out and bring in something else, like a positive thing. Like, let's say, for example, you had a Pokemon like here's an example. Let's say my opponent decides to Dynamax their Landorus. Landorus is a ground flying type. And Raichu's only weakness in this case is ground. A mono electric type is only weak to ground. So let's say I'm expecting my opponent to target my Raichu with a Max Quake. I can Volt Switch the partner of Landorus to deal some damage, and then I can switch Raichu out into Bronzong, and Bronzong with Levitate is immune to ground moves. So my opponent essentially just wasted their first turn of their Dynamax because they didn't get any damage off at all. They just missed their move because I switched. Alternatively, this works with like Moltres being weak to several things that Bronzong resists. If I want to make a really defensive play, if my Moltres is incredibly threatened on the first turn of the game, I can switch into Bronzong and do something else with my other Pokemon. So definitely some really strong switching potential on this team, and Tapu Fini further complements that by only having a couple of weaknesses and also synergizing very well with Bronzong, because like I said, we are removing we're removing the electric weakness of Tapu Fini and Moltres via the Raichu. So we could Tapu Fini's only weak to grass and poison from there, and Bronzong resists grass and is immune to poison. So that's a really nice like defensive synergy for both of these Pokemon. On top of that, Moltres and Tapu Fini have setup potential with Calm Mind, or if we run Nasty Plot on Moltres, Nasty Plot. So having a second Pokemon with Fake Out is really nice for continuing to guarantee the damage that we're pushing. So what do we want to go with for this last slot? Immediately, we both jumped to Incineroar. Incineroar is by far and away one of the best Pokemon for a team like this. A team that wants to be pivoting around, stalling you out, mitigating your damage, and then positioning itself to get its sweeper in position to start Dynamaxing and dealing damage. Incineroar gets access to the move Intimidate, often will run Fake Out, and also gets access to the move Parting Shot. Parting Shot is a really strong move, 100% accuracy, lowers the target's attack and special attack by 1, and then switches the user out. So you can drop your opponent's stats by 1 and then switch out into something else, giving you bulky options. The interesting thing about Incineroar as well is that it's slow. Incineroar is a very slow Pokemon. Not as slow as Bronzong or Glacier, but it's slow in the context of slow. And if the rest of its stats are pretty phenomenal. So oftentimes on Incineroar, you'll be running something like this, and then the remaining bulk will go into your defenses, something like this. I don't have this. I have a different spread in mind, but this is an example of like a decent defensive spread. And so slow Parting Shot has a lot of utility, because if your Incineroar is going to be the last Pokemon to move for the turn, you can Parting Shot, lower the target's attack and special attack by 1, and then switch out. And the reason why that's so good is because you don't have to waste your turn switching. You get to bring your sweeper into position and go for it from there. So Incineroar makes its way onto the team for sure. Most people run Flare Blitz as its primary damage move. And then from here, Incineroar gets access to a plethora of other good moves. Taunt, Snarl, Darkest Lariat, U-Turn. Some people run Protect. There's a bunch of moves that Incineroar gets. For a long period of time, Incineroar was running a Recovery Berry like Citrus or Figgy, but recently people have adapted Shuca Berry, which I personally think is fantastic. Shuca Berry is a type resist berry, is what it's referred to. So there's a berry like this for every single type, but it halves the damage taken from a super effective ground attack, single target use. So if you give Incineroar Shuca Berry, Incineroar is a fire type that's weak to ground, so you're going to guarantee that this thing gets to live a ground move and then Parting Shot out, which is incredibly powerful at mitigating damage. And the last move, I don't know what I'm going to run yet. Most likely it's going to be Taunt, but it could be Darkest Lariat as well. But yeah, this gave us a really powerful shell for the team. Incineroar, I really personally like this spread. I like to go like this. I've had success with this spread. This is what my Incineroar is on my Colossal team. I really like this spread. I think it makes a lot of sense, especially given Shuca Berry. You get to pivot around and guarantee that you get some damage off, and then look for Flare Blitzes at the end. Excuse me, my apologies. So this kind of glued everything together for the team. This gave us important resistances for a lot of our members of our team. It also gave us really good double Fake Out for. We have 3 things on our team that we want to set up. We have Fake Out to set up Nasty Plot. I'm just gonna put this on here now. We have Fake Out to set up Trick Room, and we have Fake Out to set up Calm Mind. And we have 2 Pokemon that can Fake Out. And we also have Intimidate. We have good bulky Pokemon all around. And from here we began to finalize this spread. So my initial reaction was to run the move Electro Web. Electro Web is an interesting move that Raichu gets. That is 95% accuracy, 55 power spread move that hits both of your opponent's Pokemon, that has 100% chance to drop their speed by 1. Raichu isn't as good at taking advantage of Electro Web as something like Regieleki is, but Electro Web gives you a good speed control option for some of your Pokemon if you need to outspeed things on the team. And also it gets access to Eerie Impulse. And because I had Intimidate on the team, this is where I started, with Eerie Impulse being able to lower special attack, Intimidate being able to lower attack, and just having naturally bulky Pokemon in general. I actually think I might end up changing this to Charm, which is the physical attack version. But for now, just for the team building purpose, I'm going to talk to you about Electro Web, because this is what I did all of my EVs for. So Raichu's done. We know this is what we want to do with Raichu. Incineroar is basically done as well. We're going to put Taunt on Incineroar just because Taunt has a lot of utility against a lot of things. I ended up, like I said, almost running Darkest Lariat instead because there were some games that I was bringing Incineroar and not bringing Moltres, and I wanted access to a Dark move. But more on that later. So we still have Tapu Fini to finish. We still have Bronzong to finish, and we still have Moltres to finish. So we don't have... this is what I ended up deciding with for the team. I ended up going with Colberberry because I wanted to make sure that I could live a dark move to get my Trick Room off. And then my last move was Iron Head because this is a steel type. Steel types, you want to have... Steel Stab is really strong. We wanted to have access to that. Glacier, Raichu. So now left the item for Fini, which was Leftovers. And Fini is most of the time going to be run Modest. Minus attack plus special attack. Which obviously you want to be a special attacking Pokemon, but why would you not want to run Timid? Why would you not want to run this? Well, the reason is because 85 speed is very mediocre. It often wouldn't make a lot of sense to invest much speed into your Tapu Fini just because you're not going to take advantage of it very well off of a base 85. Something like Raichu, yes, timid max speed because you're a base 110. You want to outspeed all other 110s. Going first on Raichu matters a lot. Going first on Tapu Fini doesn't really matter that much. And it often will be more beneficial to just invest in the other stats because Tapu Fini, with all of its bulk, can take a hit. So, how much did we want to invest in all this stuff? Well, let me go back to the other Pokemon damage calculator, the one that you can actually see speed interactions. So, Raichu is base 110. That means Raichu outspeeds all things less than base 110. So, let's take a look at things in Showdown. Let me go to a new team real quick. Let's take a look at speed. Let's take a look at things that are slower than 110. Okay. 110 is basically just Raichu. Lycanroc hits 110. Gengar hits 110. Espeon hits 110, but Espeon's not really used. Latios and Latias hit 110, and so does Lycanroc, like I said, and Tauros. 109 is only occupied by 4 Pokemon. Ninetales, Alola, Durant, Heliolisk, and Kartana. All three of these, the only Pokemon that actually see play. Durant used to see a lot of play. Heliolisk doesn't see much play at all. And then Ninetales, Alola, fringe usage, and Kartana is very popular. Well, I'm not going to bring my Tapu Fini to deal with Kartana. I might bring Tapu Fini to the same battle as Kartana, but I'm not going to be Dynamaxing Fini against Kartana. I'm going to be relying on Incineroar and Bronzong to take that thing out, because it's not going to be able to touch those Pokemon, right? So the next closest thing that is worthy of outspeeding is base 108. Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, and those 3 Pokemon are at base 108. Those Pokemon see some usage. They're not very common, but Terrakion still gets some usage. From here, the rest of things kind of fall off quickly with speed until you get to Nihilego at 103, Garchomp at 102, etc. So how much speed would we want to put into Tapu Fini? Well, let's pull up Terrakion. Let's say it's Jolly, which is a speed boosted nature, and max speed. Let's say this is the spread. Let's put Tapu Fini against it. Tapu Fini, blank set, level 50. So abilities justified. Item, let's say, is Life Orb. I don't know what people run on this Pokemon. Rock Slide. And then we're going to be 252. And then Close Combat. And then I think people run like Protect and Taunt. I think a lot of people just skip the coverage moves on this thing. So we're just going to go with these. I don't think Terrakion even gets access to anything that's more impactful than that. I just want to show you kind of how to do this, and then I'll show you what I arrived at. I'm just going to show you with the one. Yep, Rock Slide, Close Combat, Protect, Taunt. Some of them run Earthquake, some of them run Iron Head, but this is the vast majority of the sets run these moves. Okay, let's go back to the damage calculator. So if we take a look at Raichu outspeeds this thing, and Raichu could get off an Electro Web. So if this is at technically -1 speed from the Electro Web drop, we could technically EV Tapu Fini to outspeed everything 108 less with just speed, with just very, very minimal speed. Remember, we're modest. So if we take a look at this, how much speed do we need for this? 100. 100 speed's not terrible. 100 speed is pretty low investment. Nothing we really have to worry about. We still have 408 EVs that we get to work with for our other stats. We're not really too upset about that. Okay, so let's jump back over to our team builder. So if we wanted to EV Fini to outspeed things, 100 is a good place to start based on the calc that we just did. Still leaves us 408 EVs to distribute the rest of the way. We could try to optimize for leftovers recovery. Remember, we're going to want to invest a lot into HP. So we could technically stop here if we wanted to, because we're not going to be able to hit 179, which is the next spot you want to hit with leftovers is 116th. So 116 times 10 is 160, then it's 179. We can't hit one. Wait, what am I saying? 176. Right? Yeah, I'm not crazy, right? 16 times 11. Whoops. That's 16 divided by 11. 16 times 11. Okay, yeah. So this is a good spot to EV for leftovers, because you get access to 11 HP a turn, and you still invested a lot into your HP. So this is a good leftovers HP recovery, because like I said, anything below this, because of the way Pokemon truncates, if you take a look, 175 divided by 16, 10.9, it does not round that to 11, it truncates it at 10. So this extra point here is really valuable to get Fini up to 176 for leftovers recovery. Okay, so it gives us 164 to invest into our stat. Well, from here, what do we want to do? We want to obviously put some special attack investment into this thing, because we want it to be able to actually deal damage. One of the most important things about VGC, like I've been saying from the beginning, is because you only have access to 4 of your 6 Pokemon, all 4 of them have to be able to deal some form of damage. So if we take a look, we could technically aim for those bumps that I talked about in my last video, the nature bumps. So let's see where Fini's happens first. 126, 7, 28, 29, 30, 30, 32, right there at 36. So the next one's going to happen at 116. Jumps to there. So we could, in theory, aim for that and stop there. We can't hit another one because we need 80. We need to hit 80 more speed to get that, which we only have access to 48. So we could put the rest into bulk. This would be a decent place to stop. You could go even further as to do some more calculations. So let's say 116. Let's say we managed to get. Let's say we went for a fake out. We are 244, and then let's say we manage to get a fake out, and we get our Calm Mind off, and we have Muddy Water, Moonblast. So this is not a this is has a chance to KO if Sand's not set up. So this is kind of an interesting. Like, this is a weird calc to be doing, because Terrakion's not a very common Pokemon in the metagame. So if we were going to, let's say we were EVing for Incin. Defensive pivot. Let's say it's my Incin spread that I just shared with you all. Level 50 though, not level 100. Okay, so +1's gonna Oko Incineroar. +1 Max Geyser with this spread's gonna Oko Incineroar. That's a relevant calc. That's important to have access to. It's important to know. Even if it's not +1, it's still going to do a ton of damage. So having it be +1 is pretty nice. Okay, that's not a bad place to stop. The remaining EVs we could distribute into we could evenly split it in the bulk like this. It's not a bad idea. You could favor one bulk over the other. You could go for something like this. You'd have to do more calculations to really get the idea, but this is not a bad spot for Finny to be in. We calced our EVs, we hit our nature bump here, and then we went with the rest into bulk and we EV'd for our leftovers recovery. Cool. Not bad. Last Pokemon we have to do is Moltres. Moltres, similar situation, but I'm just going to tell you what these ones were. We wanted to run Modest on this because, again, base 90 doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we EV at 180, we outspeed everything that Raichu outspeeds, and we also outspeed base 130s after an Electro Web. And we can aim for the jump again on this thing. There it jumps. And then we could put 172 here. We could drop it down to 164 and then put 4 into both of these. And then our last move, Protect. So here we have a team. This is a good team to start with. This might be my new Players Cup team. One of the things that I discovered through testing was that there is some weaknesses in this team, but this video is getting to be a little bit long, and I don't want to drown you all out with boring stats. So I'm going to stop here for today. But this is a very solid team that we put together with a lot of good type synergies. We have good switches for a lot of different things. We do compound a couple of weaknesses, but we mitigate that with smart switching. We have like 3 Pokemon weak to rock with only 1 resist, but we have a lot of other things going for this team that we could, in theory, utilize. So I think I'm going to stop here for this now. Thanks so much for hanging out. This was a fun stream for me to do. I'm sorry it got a little bit long, or a fun video for me to do. I love doing this stuff. Oh, this is going to be relaxed, by the way. I love doing this kind of stuff with teams. I love doing the testing and the exploring of all the different things, and like doing the EVs and stuff like that. So, and we built a solid team with some of my favorite Pokemon like Bronzong and Raichu. So, this is an example of how I'd recommend doing team building if you're interested in doing it from the ground up like this. You can use the rental teams if you want and just copy them over from the game. If you're interested in playing in the Players Cup yourself, you can go with. You can look up a rental team on Victory Road and then copy the rental team and put it into your your game and get all the Pokemon in your game and copy that team. Or you can do what I did, where you either have Pokemon you really like Moltres and Raichu, and Pokemon you think that are sneaky good like Bronzong, and you can build a team up from there. Some things, again, that you should keep in mind when you're team building, just from my experiences playing on ladder: Incineroar and Landorus are everywhere. Intimidate's really powerful. Tapu Fini and Rillaboom are everywhere as the most common terrain setters. Regieleki's still really popular. Porygon 2 has supplanted Dusclops as the best Trick Room setter at the moment. It does not have... It's very hard to one-hit this thing. Even with a double up, it's very difficult to KO this thing. So just keep that in mind. But take a look at all this stuff. Think about what you have matchups against. Think about your type synergies. Think about what you are trying to have your team do. If you're trying to be an offensive team, you don't have to build this intensely with all your synergies. You have to think more about pushing through damage. This team is going to be switching a lot and pivoting around and looking for openings. And so therefore, having the option to... having all these bulky Pokemon is really solid. So that's going to do it for today's video. Thanks so much again for watching. I appreciate all of you. Hit that like button, subscribe button, whatever you can do to support me is fantastic. If you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. I love interacting with you all from the comments. And that's going to do it for today. So take it easy, everybody, and I'll talk to you later.